guys, here we are. What a treat it is. We're here in Geneva at Vacheron Constantin with my dear friend Christian Selmoni, Heritage Director at Vacheron Constantin.
Hello, Justin. How are you? Good
Very
to have you
good.
with us.
Can we shake in gloves? I mean, I'm not sure. How does that feel? That feels very weird.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
It's early in the year, 2023. And we've got some really exciting watches coming for Watches and Wonders this year.
Thank you.
But before we dive into the watches, tell us how you're doing. How are you? Are you well?
I'm fine. I would say we started the year pretty well, and as you see, we are preparing. We are now in the process of preparing Watches and Wonders.
Mm-hmm. I've had a sneak peek of the watches.
Yep.
No one's seen them just yet. Of course, we had the Panda overseas
Yep.
earlier this year, which went down incredibly well. But the references coming have a theme to them. The watch you've got on, in some ways, goes a little bit to explaining Vacheron's connection to the Retrograde complication.
Very much.
Tell us a little bit about the Retrograde and why it's important to Vacheron.
Yes, thank you, Justin, for this introduction. So you're totally right. So we could say that this is the year of the retrograding calendar at Vacheron Constantin, and so we have the pleasure to introduce 3 novelties, which all have in common retrograde month indication. Mm-hmm. And your question was about the watch I'm wearing. So actually, at Vacheron Constantin, we started to do retrograde systems already in the 1920s and as well in the 30s. For example, one famous example is the Dawn Pen Show, a bespoke timepiece that we made between 1936 and 1940. Which was a minute repeater with a month display featuring a retrograde system. And as far as you can say, that was the very first wristwatch, I would say, that was incorporating such a system. I don't know for which reason, Justin, but this kind of retrograde informations, they slightly disappeared during the 40s, 50s, 60s, and later. And Vacheron Constantin decided to reintroduce this type of complication in the year 2000 with that timepiece.
Yes.
Which is the reference 47245.
Beautiful.
Which is bearing 31 days retrograde information and days of the week which are in traditional subdial, so dragging system. Mm-hmm. So in a way, that timepiece is the ancestor of what we are presenting here today.
Tell me why the fascination with the retrograde, because it's not something that we see prevalently across the watch industry. I think of the retrograde date and I think of Vacheron. What about the sort of philosophical view on it? Because it's obviously very legible visually, but there's something about, timekeeping's all about the emotion, and the retrograde has some appeal to it in that sense.
Yeah, it's true. So actually at Vacheron Constantin, we really do love the retrograde system, because this is a very sophisticated and elegant system to display the 31 days calendar. So to answer properly to your question, Justin, so of course, traditionally we are using in watchmaking for complicated models the month indication in a subdial, which is obviously reducing the readability of this information. So we decided to really introduce more. We are introducing, in fact, more and more system like that, because the first reason is the improved readability of the system, and in addition, it's a far more complicated system than for a dragging system. Mm-hmm. So basically said, really basically said, so we have a spring and 31 days a wheel, which are really at the heart of the system, and I would say when the date is jumping from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, etc., etc. So the more days of the months you are coming to, the more torque or power is given into the spring. Mm-hmm. So the last day of the month, mm-hmm. The flyback system is coming back to 1 in only 0.02 of a second. Mm. So this is a super interesting system and very, very interesting to work on.
So in essence, what we're saying here is that with a retrograde date, as the days go by, the torque is increasing, the power is increasing, and then at the end of the month, we've got that power generated to fling back.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Right.
In many ways, it's the retrograde date is like some people will connect it to a power reserve on a dial, where you see the power dwindling over a period of time. The visual view of the month going through like that, it's quite an appealing way of knowing where you are.
Yes,
I
very
think that's
much.
quite a
And it really became, I would say, a specialty or a technical signature, I would say, of Vacheron Constantin in the recent year. And so that's why we are happy to welcome you here and to introduce these new models that all are bearing this system through different collections.
So we have to, let's get into the watches. So we have got different collections here, and some surprising, some maybe not as surprising, but there are definitely links that people will make to the different elements of these watches to the past. I think that's one thing Vacheron does incredibly well, is linking to the past. Let's start with this Patrimony here. This Patrimony has a coloured dial that some will recognise. How would you describe that dial?
There are different ways to nickname or to name this dial. So at Vacheron Constantin, we call it the Salmon color dial.
Brilliant. Now, of course, last year we saw the perpetual calendar variation, which had a very similar dial, but not finished, as you said earlier to me, not finished in the same way.
Yes, exactly.
Slightly different finishing.
So maybe, Justin, if you allow me, so I would like to do a short introduction about this signature. So this is a new signature at Vacheron Constantin, which consists of combining a platinum case with a Salomon color dial. So this is the kind of combination, I would say, white metal, mostly platinum, but still, as well in the past, combined with this Salmon color dials. It was something that we had already during the 1940s, for example, on chronographs. And we decided to recreate that signature at Vacheron Constantin last year, as you mentioned, on the Traditionnelle perpetual calendar chronograph. And this is a signature that is going to be, I would say, that we are going to develop on other lines than Traditionnelle. And so this year, that's why we are introducing this signature in Patrimony. So in addition, Justin, so this combination platinum case and Salomon dial is a kind of capsule, if I may say. And this is not a limited edition, but it will be a limited production. In a nutshell, so this is the signature, this combo, platinum and Salomon dial.
God, it works so well. And the other thing, of course, when you look a little bit closer on the dial itself, you've got this sunburst effect on the dial itself, which is beautiful in different lights. Combined with the blue hands finishing, so you've got double retrograde, so you've got the date there running across the top section of the dial, and then the bottom you've got the days. So you've actually got a double retrograde, but then you have these accents of blue which work beautifully, both on the hands and also the days of the month and the days themselves.
Very much. So this is part also of the signature. It was a similar kind of execution in the Traditionnelle. So it's part also of this signature. One thing I would like to add, Justin, so you mentioned it at the very beginning. So the finishing of the dial is slightly different from the Traditionnelle. Well, as a matter of fact, depending in which collection we are going to develop that signature, obviously we are respecting the codes of each collection. So that's why we have this satin or sunray kind of finish in the Patrimony.
Very, very beautiful. Let's talk about the caliber very briefly. What have we got? Automatic movement, of course.
So this is our caliber. So it's based on our caliber 2460, which is an in-house caliber. And we have launched that model, which is the 31 days and date, both retrograde, in 2007. So this is one of the most successful models of the Patrimony collection, and a very distinctive aesthetics. So this is a watch which is really I would say, kind of emblematic of the Patrimony collection. We decided to include it in this signature platinum Salomon combo this year to celebrate this model, which was launched in 2007.
Beautiful. We have to touch on sizing, because of course that's something you and I have discussed a lot off camera. Traditionally, this was the size that the model came in. This was the traditional aesthetic. And you've continued with that this year.
Sure. So as I was mentioning, we launched that timepiece in 2007, and we have to remember, Justin, that 15 years ago, the size of the watches was larger. Slightly larger than these days. There is one reason concerning the dimension of this timepiece. In the Patrimony collection, we really want to maintain the same aesthetics through all the models of the collection, no matter they are simple or complicated. So in order to maintain these proportions, this very unique aesthetic, we are really playing with the diameters depending on the movements we are putting inside the watches. So that's why we wanted to keep this 42.5 millimeter diameter, and in addition, it gives a very, very good readability, especially for the days of the week, which are printed on the dial as well.
For anyone who has not tried a Patrimony on, I urge you to try one on, because it's a watch that, until you actually put it on and appreciate the way it sits on your wrist with the curvature, as you mentioned,
Very much.
it's really special. And actually, one of the most challenging things is creating a dress watch, a simpler dress watch code to be recognizable. And this, as you say, sits on its own in that. It's got this beautiful sort of almost organic shape to it. So beautiful. There we go. Platinum salmon dial. Oh, double retrograde. Absolutely wonderful. Let's move on to the second watch in the middle. Now, the eagle-eyed out there will remember a watch that was launched, was it 2019, the Twin Beat?
Yes, if you are thinking about Twin Beat, yes, you got it.
It was a watch that I can still remember sitting in the presentation at, SIHH back then. And it was just one of those moments that took people's breath away because of the sheer complexity of the development. Tell us a little bit about the Twin Beat and the journey to where we are here today with this Traditionnelle.
To come back to Twin Beat, let's say quickly said, so Twin Beat was is a highly innovating timepiece, featuring two oscillators, giving you the possibility to extend the power reserve to up to 70 days. If we have to talk as well on the design of the Twin Beat. So Twin Beat is part of the Traditionnelle collection. However, we wanted to create a tension between the very classical style of the case and, by the way, the dial, and the modernity and the complexity of the Twin Beat caliber. So in 2019, we decided to have a if I may say, open work dial, very complex dial, in which we were showing the complexity of the movement. And in addition, in the Twin Beat, Justin, if you remember, we had as well, let's say, a dark gray coating on the movement, which added a bit more of complexity and modernity to the timepiece. This said, we wanted to carry on with this kind of aesthetics in the Traditionnelle, combining tradition and modernity, and we did last year with the complete calendar. And that year, we have something very important, so it's a brand new Traditionnelle tourbillon 31 days retrograde.
It's really interesting because actually only in time do you connect the dots. You can see the lineage of where this reference has come from, and now you can see it continued. I think the point you raised there about the challenge of modernity, sort of avant-garde design versus high-end traditional watchmaking comes together in this really interesting package. I mean, the dial, we have to talk about the dial because in many ways you are showing something, but you're not showing everything.
True.
Which is kind of like how all good things in life should be. Just a little
Possibly.
tease, and then, but not everything. So you've got beautifully finished gear shade dial here, a little bit of a view into the caliber there above the center of the watch, heading towards the 12 o'clock markers there, and actually beautifully it delivered in this sort of
straight line.
Yeah, paneling almost, this panelled approach which creates lots of different layers and textures. Including that, you've even got, and this is something that I think the Twin Beat had as well, was the logo, the Vacheron logo actually printed on the crystal itself, which creates amazing depth.
Yeah, so exactly, so you have different layers on this dial, which gives a lot of depth and showing the complexity. So in addition, Justin, we decided to create that 31-day retrograde calendar on the tourbillon, because by open working the dial, we can show the complexity and we can show the sophistication of the retrograde system as well, which was really the idea behind. I would like, if you allow me, to speak a bit about the caliber. So this timepiece is based on our automatic ultra-thin tourbillon caliber that we launched in 2018 in the Traditionnelle collection. Things that we could mention is the fact that we have a peripheral rotor, which is a very smart technical solution. But what is interesting, I think, to mention today is the fact that when we were developing this caliber years ago, we thought we were already thinking about developing some variations on this movement. And so our engineers, they have integrated or half integrated the 31 days retrograde system within the thickness of the caliber. And so the result, so I would say, in addition, in traditional way to do things. So you create an additional mechanism that you put on your base caliber, and you get it. But this is not the case here.
Yes.
So as the mechanism is a semi-integrated, we have been able to save almost 1 millimeter of additional thickness to the movement, which gave us the possibility to create a very elegant and thin timepiece for such a complexity of only 11 millimeter thick. So one thing more, Justin, so you can see that the tourbillon catch has been raised
Yes.
in comparison with the regular caliber. So that is, I think, a very smart and elegant solution. And so you have the tourbillon, which is very much visible on the front of the timepiece, and not, like in the background of the of the timepiece.
It's very much a feature of the design, and even the border of the tourbillon itself. I mean, beyond the cage itself, it's beautifully sat. I mean, everything comes together beautifully. And I think what's really interesting about this watch is that this is an example of technical planning at its best, because traditionally, of course, we have a very thick watch which has a base caliber, then complication modules added to it over time.
You got it.
This has actually been thought through in advance. I mean, to see a peripheral rotor built in there, especially against that NAC, that NAC finishing, that stealthy blackened finish, it's just it's a really, really thought-provoking technical innovation, actually, from Vacheron. Yeah.
Last point maybe to mention, Justin, so this the case diameter is 41 millimeter. So, I think it's also reflecting this trend that we see these days to have watches which are slightly smaller than the watches of 15 years ago.
Yeah, no, and I think people will, once they see this, I actually, when we had them all laid out, I said I thought that looked slightly smaller than that. Certainly in the hand and on the wrist, you can appreciate the proportions are actually wears even smaller because of that thin case profile. But really very, very beautiful. And actually, to me, it's about technical innovation, but also layers.
Very much.
It's just wonderful. It is wonderful. So there we go. Traditionnelle, tourbillon, and finally, Christian, something that I think a lot of people probably didn't expect to see.
Yes, that's a good point, Justin.
I was surprised for sure when I saw it come through a couple of weeks ago, but in a wonderful way. Of course, an overseas, a blue dial, a layered lacquered blue dial that we have grown to love, and certainly many more people have become interested in over the last 2 years. But in this instance, we've got a complicated version of a watch we know and love.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, thank you for this introduction. So as you are mentioning, so it's quite unexpected to see this type of complication into a sport elegant timepiece, because as we know, usually in sport elegant timepieces, you may have a dual time, world time, chronograph functions. I think I think that the success of sport elegant watches in the recent years has made possible the integration of, let's say, a classic complication, if I may say, that were usually that you could find more, I would say, on elegant dress watches, on leather strap, into a sport elegant timepieces. And so this is why we decided to incorporate this retrograde days of the month display plus a moon phase indicator in the overseas lineup.
Do you know what? It's incredibly well balanced as well.
So
thank you. It is incredible. From that 3 o'clock marker all the way back round to the 9 o'clock marker, it has its own world almost at the top of the dial. And then you've got this very, very well balanced, perfectly positioned moon phase at 6. Gold disc with some stars, but also constellations, no?
Yeah, right.
So really very lovely. I mean, it's just something spectacular. I think, again, it's one you have to see in the metal, because the number of times I've had debates over the last year or two with people who wanted to either go for the black dial, the traditional Generation 3 time-only overseas, versus the blue dial. This blue dial really pops. What was the decision, and why did you go for the blue dial over the black variation?
Yes. So if we continue in the explanation of this complication into overseas, so it's like it was the case for the tourbillon in overseas. We decided to launch it in steel with the blue dial, because the blue dial obviously is really, I think, one of the signatures of the overseas collection. And the steel metal is really also I would say as well, very much appreciated for sport elegant watches, obviously. So that were the reasons behind this launch in steel with the blue dial. I'd like also to add to your comments that a lot of work has been necessary for our designers to find the good proportion, to find the right balance in the dial. Because obviously, due to the retrograde calendar, we had to cut some of the indexes of the overseas on the upper part of the dial. And on the other hand, we had to maintain the aesthetic signature or aesthetic codes of the overseas with this triangle indexes. So I think, like you were mentioning, the balance of the dial is really good. And you mentioned as well that we have this moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock, which is also bearing the age of the moon, which is printed on top of the subdial. So I'd like to say that this is a astronomical moon or precision moon display, meaning we have a dedicated gear train for the moon phase, which gives us more than 122 years of accuracy. Wow. So again, like it was the case for the Traditionnelle or the Patrimony, we are very much concerned with sophistication and care for the detail and beautiful high watchmaking in a nutshell for all our watches.
How did you manage to get it that thin? Yes. With that level of complication?
Yeah, true. A good point. So we have a case which is only 10.48 millimeter thick for a diameter of 41 millimeter.
Yep.
So again, this is thanks to the use of a thin caliber. So this is 2416, and we have saved as much as possible place in the retrograde and moon mechanism, in order to achieve an elegant and sophisticated timepiece, very much in the style of the Maison.
So the final thing that we should talk about is it's got a quick change system. So you can go from a leather strap to this beautiful rubber strap, which I think is underrated because not all rubber straps are made equal. This is a particularly good one with lovely finishing on it.
Thank you, sir.
And then of course this bracelet, which again is actually very, very beautiful, which echoes the Maltese cross in it, which again, some bracelets are incredibly comfortable, others are not, and that's a very good one. So that's the Overseas Retrograde. Before I leave you,
yes.
Are these limited edition or not?
So no. The Platinum with Salomon is a limited production, so this is a signature kind of capsule. And the two others, the Traditionnelle and the Overseas, they are not limited. Obviously, for obvious reasons, the production will be limited naturally, if I may say.
Yes.
But they are not limited editions.
Yes. Brilliant.
So, if you allow me, Justin, so I might have a question.
No, don't do that to me. Yeah. Don't do that to me.
I would like to know, out of the three that we have here,
okay,
which one would be your favorite?
No. Oh God, no. This is tough. So you can see, and this is a watch I've shared with you a lot. This 1921 in yellow gold is my my first love from Vacheron.
Okay,
my first love. And as a result, I mean, I sort of see it almost like a tool watch. I don't see it as a dress watch necessarily. I wear it like it's more casual, more relaxed. But I do feel that I need an Overseas.
Excellent.
Everyone needs an Overseas. Yeah. Everyone needs an Overseas.
I think it makes sense. Like we said together, so the Overseas is offering, this, let's say, modern watchmaking expression, which is sport elegant. And you talk about the versatility of the bracelet, which is personally for me, which is a big plus. And in addition, you have a very interesting mix of complications, which are really, rooted in the watchmaking style of watchmaking out of Vacheron Constantin. So I would say it's a great choice. This
would be that variation that I just think would, in the blue as well, it's just so good. And the sizing, I mean, it's all there, And actually, I think, I'm used to wearing this now. So thickness-wise, they're not dissimilar actually. And although it's a little bit larger in size, it wears in a very similar way. So Overseas for me. But it's not easy. I have to applaud you and the team for the salmon and the platinum combination, because that's something that I think will, at some point, be something I have to get, because it's incredible. No, Christian, thank you so much. Lovely to chat and to see you as always.
Thank you. Same for
Excited
me.
to see you at the show in a couple of weeks' time.
Me too.
And please, guys, do leave your comments below. Let us know what you thought of these launches. Tell us what your experience of a retrograde has been in the past, and certainly which piece you like the most. Thank you as always.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Christian.